Do not disturb. Good morning.
We bring in a friend who we've known for years and years and years. He's an author, relationship therapist, Dr. R.G. Alan Wilson.
Some expert advice on how we can all talk to them. Joining us now is relationship expert Dr. R.G. Alan Wilson. She's the author of Courageous Conversations Connect. Good morning, R.G.
Doctor, good morning. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good morning, Janelle. It's good to be here. Thanks for having me.
And as we mentioned, a lot of people just dealing with anxiety during all of this. What are your suggestions?
Some of the things that we need to remember is that this is temporary. This is temporary inconvenience for long-term gain. And as long as we stay healthy, Janelle, then everything else is recoverable.
Talk to your children about what's happening right now. What are the best ways to do that?
There's some do's and don'ts, right? So you want to tell them that you're going to be here. We're going to be okay. Kids want to know that they're secure and they're safe. So predictability, structure, and consistency. You also want to let them know you have a plan. And even if you don't have a plan, tell them that you're working on one.
Good morning, everyone. Oh my goodness. Welcome to the Courageous Conversations Connect space where we're having our quarantine talks. And this is yours truly, Dr. RG. Oh my goodness, I missed you guys. I hope you guys missed me as much as I missed you. Morgan and I had a great week. It wasn't a vacation. It wasn't really a staycation. We worked on some stuff, some projects around the house, and then we tooled up to get ready for you. So as promised, I said we were coming back May 25th, Memorial Day, and here we are. So happy Memorial Day. Shout out to all of those families that have lost loved ones, and due to those persons who have put their lives, they've given the ultimate sacrifice for our country. And so we want to give them honor, and we want to celebrate them, and we want to spend this day in reverence of anyone that you know. And please shout out. We're going to do breathing a little bit in a minute, but we'll do it for those persons, if you know, that maybe have given their lives as a sacrifice for our country. So I'm excited to be here. I see Billy Joe and China and Autumn and Charla. We are going to get started. I'm excited. The crew. I'm so excited about you guys, our crew, connecting relationships for epic wins. And good morning to my IG family, of course, Facebook family, of course, YouTube, our family. If you are, I hope that you're bringing a friend. I see Joe. Hey, Joe, we missed you. If you know of anyone that wants to see more content, go on over to the YouTube page and hit subscribe. We're looking for more subscribers. Subscribe to the YouTube page and then click the notification bell so that you can get notifications for everything that we are actually doing. I also, if you are on Facebook, if you put subscribe in the message section, that's awesome. You'll get notifications that way too. All right. So listen, we're going to take a quick break from our sponsors. We're going to be right back. Stay with us. We've got today packed full of information about communication. I'll see you in a bit. Stay with us.
Others that serve and cousin Roger.
Awesome. Well, hey, good morning, guys. This is the Courageous Conversations Connect space. Welcome back. I am Dr. RG, yours truly, here for your quarantine talks. You guys know that we do our quarantine talks. We kind of, zhuzhed up our programming for you. And so we are here Monday through Thursday at 10 a.m. And today is Memorial Day. We promised we would be back after taking a week off to retool and refuel so that we could bring you really, really good content. So we're just excited to be here We know that this is Memorial Day, and so we are giving honor. Please hit in the chat. This is for our crew. Who are you as we move into, you all know what we do in the morning. We do our breathing, right? So usually we're breathing for essential workers. We're breathing for those persons who may have lost their lives to COVID-19 or their family member. We're breathing for those persons that are putting their lives on the line. And today, specifically, if you know a military person, somebody who has served for our country so that we can sit here and be safe, please put their name in the chat. Specifically, if you know someone who has died in the line of duty, but even if they have not and they have just served, please put their name in the chat because we're going to be breathing for them, anyone. So I would say that I'm going to breathe for two people. I'm breathing for my father, who was in the Army. He was a cook in the Army many, many years ago. He did not do active, he wasn't on the front lines, but he certainly served for several years during the draft. I'm also breathing for Morgan's spiritual father and my good friend, Gene Austin Jefferson, who had 2 terms in Vietnam and 3 tours, did 3 tours. Morgan corrected me, 3 tours in Vietnam, and is just amazing. If you ever talk to Gene Austin Jefferson, trust and believe you're going to get a wealth of information. You're going to laugh the whole time because he's so funny. And simultaneously, when you walk away, you're like, oh my God, I learned this, I learned that, I learned that. So we're, I'm going to be breathing for him as well as my father, 2 persons who I love dearly, who served in the military and certainly put their lives on the line so that we would be safe. Shout out to all of our military personnel who are in active duty even now, today, in the midst of a pandemic. They're doing some great things globally to make sure that we're okay. And so please let me know who you're breathing for and who are the persons that you know that have put their lives on the line on this Memorial Day. Here in Philadelphia, it's a little cloudy, not a lot of sun, but maybe it will burn off. Who knows? But it's a beautiful day. Guess what? If you woke up today and you're breathing, then trust me, it's a good day. It's a good day. So we had some plans for you. And I see China said, my fantastic godmother, Gloria Jean Brown Rice. Awesome. So China is breathing for her godmother. And you all let us know who else you're breathing for. Who are the persons in your life that you want to send reverence to, you want to honor, you want to send good vibes. And by the way, since it's a holiday and we're all quarantined, make sure you do something for somebody, a senior. Give them a call, send a text if they're on text or if they're on social media. Let them know that they are loved. This is a difficult time. We are now in week 11, literally week 11 of quarantine here in Pennsylvania. And there's a lot of things going on. Hey, Kathleen. Welcome back. Welcome back. I'm looking for something on my phone that I can't find. Where is it? Oh, here it is. Oh, here it is. Yeah. So this week, there's a couple things that have been going on before we go into our breathing that I want people to just take into consideration. For example, in the state of Pennsylvania, there's a debate about going back to the church institutions, faith-based institutions coming back open. I am of the belief that this COVID-19 is serious and it's looking for us to make poor choices. How many of you all know that sometimes it's the poor choices that impact us the most? So I don't think that that's a good choice, quite frankly. And I think that, they're in a debate about it. But, as our pastor said yesterday, the church was never closed and it is essential. We just worshiped differently. They're still feeding the hungry and they're still doing service. They're still committed to our community. In terms of the worship, you can worship anywhere. So we've been worshiping online and you don't necessarily have to be in the physical brick and mortar building in order to worship, from my perspective. So that's what's going on. And Charla says, breathing for uncle who passed away from COVID. Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry, Charla. My heart and prayers go out to you and your family. There's so many people that have lost loved ones due to COVID-19. And there are many more, and our lives have changed forever. We know this because we are functioning differently in the world. We're having drive-by graduations and celebrations. You know, people's weddings have been put on hold. If people passed away, we can't go to the funeral. In the way we have online funerals now, or graveside funerals, so that we can keep our social distancing. We're not able to be with our loved ones in the hospital oftentimes if they get sick. And so that's why we're going to talk about communication today. So just to prepare you guys before we go into our breathing, this is our topic for the week, is breaking barriers and building bridges. I thought that was a good topic for us to come back to. So all week, we're going to be talking about how do we break barriers, because barriers are fundamentally problematic for healthy relationships, right? And how do we build bridges? Because oftentimes when we have conflict, then we have discourse. When we have discourse, then we have, unhealthy relationships, if you will, lots of conflict. We want to build bridges, and we want to break those barriers, if you will. So today, specifically, we're going to move into a conversation after our breathing about communication barriers. Why? Why communication? Communication is key to any healthy relationship, whether it be with your family member, your siblings, your parents, your friendships, your colleagues, your people within your faith-based community, your spouse, whomever you are connected to. If you do not have healthy communication, I can guarantee that you're not going to have a healthy relationship. This is live, so we have a ambulance going down the street, so forgive us for that. Hopefully we're praying for whomever is in that ambulance, that they would be well and that they would be okay, and that the persons that would be caring for them would know exactly what they're doing. I typically do that when I'm hearing ambulance, because you never know whose family member that is. You never know who that is in that ambulance. So anyway, we're specifically talking about communication today. All right. So as you all continue to put in the chat, whomever it is that you're praying for, whoever it is that you're breathing for, if there's anyone in the military that you'd like to shout out that is actually serving us in this community and both in the United States and abroad, shout them out. We're going to get in our posture. You all know what we do. So we're about 13 minutes in. You put your middle finger to your thumb, or your hands over top of, one hand over the top of the other hand and sit on your lap, or your hands on your side. You get real comfortable. The women do a little shimmy. The guys just shake it off, because Morgan says guys don't shimmy. So I said wiggle a couple weeks ago. Do guys shimmy? Do guys shimmy more? No, they don't shimmy. So guys just shake it off, and women, we'll do our little wiggle and or our shimmy, and get in our positions. As we think about breathing is essential to life. It is just as essential as sleep, is just essential as water for life. And what we're going to do is we're going to breathe through our nose. We're going to hold it for 10, and then we're going to breathe out through our mouth. As you breathe in, you should feel your tummy extend. That means that there's oxygen going into your body. It goes to your mind, your heart, your lungs, all of your essential organs through your blood vessels, right? You want to oxygenate your body, and then you want to breathe out carbon dioxide, which is not good for us. But as we do that, we're also breathing in kindness and love and serenity and peace and joy, all of those positive energy. And we're breathing out fear and worry and anxiety and disappointment and frustration. I know I'm a little frustrated by seeing all those people out there yesterday in the Ozarks and even Ocean City. So a lot of people not socially distancing. So I'm breathing out that negative energy and trying to pray for those people. All right. So let's do it. At the sound of my voice, I'm going to count to 3. We're going to breathe in through the nose, hold it for 10, and out through the mouth. 1, 2, 3. Breathe in. And out. Breathe in. And out. Breathe in. And out. Breathe in. And out. One last time, make it count, guys. Breathe in. And out. That felt good, didn't it? Felt good. So I want you guys to do that periodically throughout the day. It's good exercise. It builds lung capacity. It also helps to relax us and recenter us. It also helps us to practice the art of breathing. Too often our breathing is extremely shallow. We're talking a mile a minute. We're not breathing in oxygen, which means that we don't have good oxygen that's going to the brain and to the heart and to the essential organs to allow our bodies to function. We need breath to live. And as those persons who are, impacted and affected by COVID-19, sometimes it affects their lung capacity more quickly, especially if they had some pre-existing conditions or if they've had some underlying conditions, certainly if they have some asthma or they have bronchitis or they have some kind of breathing condition that can impact them a little bit more. So that said, I want to hear from you as we move into the conversation, and please make sure that you like and you share. This is really, really important for the algorithms. Send me some thumbs up and some smiley faces and some hearts. That also helps with our algorithms. We need your help to continue to put this good content out there. Please go over to the YouTube page if you haven't done that yet, and subscribe to our YouTube page. We're having good content. Morgan and Daryl have been working it out in terms of like our promotional materials and all of the good content that we have to share with you. So,
if they saw your new commercial.
Oh yes, yeah. So guys, let us know if you saw the new promo that Morgan and Daryl worked on. They worked all last week on putting it together. I thought it was really, really nice. We're going to keep pushing that out, and we'd appreciate it if you share that promo with other people so that they know, because some people may be your friends and not mine, but hopefully they join our crew. And the only way that they can do that is if they know we're out there. So please share that promo with them, with whomever your friend base is, and invite them to become a part of our crew. This is completely free. We're not charging anything. The only thing that this will cost you is information sharing, right? The goal here is that we information share, that we inspire one another, that we motivate one another to do the necessary things to have a healthy relationship both with others and with ourselves in this quarantine talks. Oh, gotcha. Okay. Autumn saw it, says, very nice, Tanya. I did see the promo. Awesome. Tamara's on. She says, hi, Doc. Glad to see you're back. Thank you. It's good to be back, Tamara. China says, yes, very, very nice. That means a lot coming from you, China, because I know that you've done all of these kinds of things, and actually was the first person to help me out with some things in terms of some videos and things like that. So thank you so much. Let us know if you can share that. We'd appreciate it. Please share it with your friend base, and that way they can become part of our crew. So all this week, we are talking about building bridges and breaking barriers. That's our theme for the week, right? This week, today we're specifically talking about communication barriers. Then tomorrow, we're going to be talking about emotional and psychological barriers. And we're actually going to have a guest who's a really, really good friend of mine on the show. His name is John Taylor. He is a therapist extraordinaire. He's on my short list of folks in Philly that I refer people to, especially sometimes men, in particular men of color, who I feel like maybe I might not do the best job, although I do have a lot of males of color in my practice. But if they need something specific, then I often will send them to John. So he's going to be on with me tomorrow morning, talking about the emotional and psychological barriers during this COVID-19. And then on Thursday, Wednesday, we are going to have Bishop Sean Bartley. And he's going, True United Church, not too far from us in Germantown. He's amazing. He's going to be on talking specifically about structural and institutionalized barriers in the midst of COVID. Like the conversation that we've been having, should we go back to church or should we not go back to church? Where are the biases that are taking place? What are the barriers, the structural and institutionalized barriers that keep us from not living our best lives? So that's going to be a great conversation. And then I'm going to round that out on Thursday, talking about family and relationship barriers. And we'll talk specifically about, whether it be your partners, your kids, your siblings, different types of family, and how do you deal with those relationship barriers. And so communication is key to all of this. So I want to, have you share and hey, Raj, I think Raj is on. Hey, good morning, Raj. Raj is one of our sponsors that is amazing. So if you need security, you definitely need to go to Roger Laseth. When we think about communication barriers, we need to kind of think about, well, what is it really? How does it impact us? Why? And please tell me and please share what your story is if you've had a communication barrier at any point during this last 11 weeks that we've been in quarantine. Because the truth is, to be honest with you guys, part of the issue for many of us now is that we probably haven't dealt with the issue prior to it, right? Prior to COVID-19 and this pandemic. We probably didn't deal with the pink elephant in the room. We felt like we didn't want to deal with the conflict, or that we would just kind of let it ride and we could just go outside of our houses and go to work and, go back to business as usual. Well, now 11 weeks into a quarantine, when you're under the roof with your partner, with your parent, with your children, with your friends, whomever you are connected with, that's creating a little bit of a tinderbox for many people. And people are exhausting whatever skill set, whatever tools they had in the toolbox, they're exhausting them. What's your communication barrier? Have you had difficulty sharing your heart with someone? Have you been in a house with someone who you want to wear a mask, but they don't? You want to wash your hands, every time you pass the sink, they don't. You want to stay in, they want to go out. This is the holiday weekend. What are you doing for Memorial Day? Is your mindset that you're just going to chill because we're in the middle of a pandemic, but somebody else is saying, no, this is long enough. I'm going to get out of here and go do what I want to do. So tell me, share with us what your communication barriers. While you're sharing, I'm going to give you some examples of how it is that people tend to not communicate effectively due to barriers and what those specific barriers are. First, there's filtering. So what is the filtering? That's when you are filtering the information through your own lens, right? It's not through the other person's lens, it's through yours. Like the filters on a phone, I put some filters on when I was sent a picture and then it changes the way in which the picture looks. It might be darker, it might be lighter, it might have some pretty kind of things on it. That's kind of what the communication barrier is when it comes to filtering. It really means that you filtered the information through your brain, right? And somehow the message that was sent may be different than the message that's received. So then there's selective perception. You perceive it one way. I had a friend, actually, interesting, Morgan, the friend Chris Pender, years ago, your friend. Your family, Chris. Years ago, when we took a class together, it was a pairs class. He said, I never forget it. He said, don't allow your perception to screw up your reception. And I never forgot that, because sometimes we can perceive something and the way in which we perceive it is completely different than the way in which it was intended. So then our perception screws up our reception. And then there's emotional disconnects. Well, what does that look like? It means that you've checked out. How many of us have checked out of a relationship because we couldn't communicate effectively? So maybe we can't go anywhere in the midst of a quarantine, but emotionally we just checked out. We just disconnected, which doesn't allow for the effective communication to take place. So in essence, it's a barrier. And then, okay, so those are at least 4 things, and then I'll list the other 4 after we give some comments about that. But tell me what you think about filtering, selective perception, emotional disconnects, and then there's information overload. When somebody shares so much information, you can't keep up, so you get flooded. Tamara says, interestingly enough, I had some communication barriers with my children going into the pandemic. However, it has been a blessing to work through some of them during this time. We were basically forced to talk about it and deal with them at this time. Thank you. Thank you. And absolutely. Thank you for sharing that, Tamara, because that's what it requires. I often say when I work with kids, let's talk it out so you don't act it out or act it in, right? Give me some thumbs up on that, right? That's excellent. Talk it out so you don't act it out or act it in. Because if we don't talk about it, we don't talk it out, then in essence, those barriers, those walls will go up and we will begin to act it out, right? Through passive aggressive behavior, through, unkind things, saying sarcastic remarks. We'll just act out or we'll act in. Yeah. So that's what I'm talking about. When either you tap in, right? It was a little bit different when we talked about it last week.
There's 2 things. You tapped in, tapped out, then you said act it out or act it in.
Okay. So what I'm talking about today is that sometimes we will, if we don't talk it out, whatever, like what Tamara was talking about, then we will act it out or we'll act it in. We'll get depressed or we'll snap on someone or we'll just be constantly agitated or what have you. When we last week or a few weeks ago, when we talked about tap in and tap out, I was talking specifically about how we tap into our own trauma, our own anxiety, tap into it to understand it differently, and then tap out, which is to sort of externalize that so that we're not harming ourselves with negative information. Does that make sense, guys? You said somebody else said, who do you want? Okay, so Autumn says, I think quarantine has exposed an already existing communication barrier with my mother, and I who is staying with me short term. I have a hard time communicating that she sometimes overshares issues. I think other family members would prefer to be private. Interesting. So here's the thing, and thank you for being authentic. Thank you for sharing that short term is what you meant by that. Thank you for just being available and being able to be vulnerable with us in this crew, because your issue is not unlike a lot of other people's issue on them, that we sometimes have a communication barrier with a loved one that, quite frankly, before quarantine, before COVID-19, we just brushed it off and probably didn't have to deal with it all that much. Maybe we didn't see that person every day. We didn't talk to them every day. So those issues that seem to be just beneath the surface, and they didn't seem like they were a big deal. Now they've become a big deal. They become more pronounced. And so the oversharing that you're talking about with your mom, I'm going to give you guys some techniques that you can utilize in any situation, whether it be oversharing, whether it be talking to your kids. In particular, when you're talking about a different generation sometimes, and that's a part of the communication barrier for sometimes, it can be gender differences or it could be age differences. Sometimes a different generation just thinks about things very differently. Your mom or them might be thinking, oh, this is good information to share. Or, she may not have the filter that you have. She may feel like it's not a big deal. So there's some things that you can do to try to resolve that or reconcile that by having the courageous conversation. So I'm going to teach you guys how to do that. So hold on to that. Please continue to share, because we're going to have some specific tools that I'm going to leave you with. And I'm going to ask at the end of the week, right, if you've been utilizing them and trying them out with your loved ones or with your family, whomever you're having communication barriers with. Okay. So listen, we're going to take a quick break from our sponsors. We're going to come back and we're going to unpack this communication issue and address the barriers so that we can build bridges. Stay with me. Thanks for sharing that, Allison. So we're going to unpack that. Hey, it's Dr. RG here. This is the Courageous Conversations Connect space, and this is Quarantine Talks, right? We are talking about communication barriers, and we're talking all week about how do we break barriers and build bridges. So Allison on IG was just saying that she was having difficulty with looking for a job within the mix of this pandemic and COVID-19 and quarantine, and also trying to reconcile that with the fact that she's not happy in her place of employment due to some communication barriers. So I know all about that as well. Just like we sometimes have breakdown in communication barriers with our family members and our loved ones, we can also have communication barriers within a workplace where their vision is different than ours. Their value system is different than ours. That's why later in the week, we're going to be talking about structural and institutionalized barriers, because that's real, right? There's been institutionalized racism and sexism and, all kinds of ways in which we see the world through a different lens that creates conflict for us and then creates barriers. And then when we feel like there's an impasse, there's no place to go with it, then we tend not to communicate effectively. Autumn says, having a courageous conversation is definitely courageous, Doc, especially with my mama. I believe it. I absolutely believe it. But there really is a way to do it. There is a way to have the courageous conversation, but you have to be tactical. You have to be strategic. You have to be empathic. And you have to be understanding. Tactical, strategic, empathic, and understanding, right? Those are the things that are required. Here's a few more, and keep telling me your story. I just want to give you the other effective barriers to effective communication. Allison specifically talked about this when the workplace is no longer working for you, when the system that you're in every single day just doesn't work for you, and we can tend to shut down just like everyone else. The lack of source of familiarity or credibility. In essence, when we're not either familiar or we don't give that person or that entity credit, when really we don't respect it or the person, that creates barriers. As I said, gender differences or age differences create some barriers sometimes. Morgan and I were having a conversation yesterday about the age barrier on social media. I give so many people, older people, credit for being in the space of social media. The truth is, though, sometimes they don't really understand the backlash that comes about within the context of social media, maybe when they're saying certain things. And I have to say, to be honest with you, people, we need to be kinder. We need to determine the difference between a debate, which is your position, and we can agree to disagree, and being mean, right? Some of the things that I see sometimes in social media, I think is mean. I don't think you should call people names in social media. I don't think that you should start saying things that are unkind. Speak your position. That's one of the techniques that I want to teach you, because when you speak from your heart and you speak from I, then you're saying, this is how I feel. That is very different than projecting onto the other person and saying, you did this and you did that, and, and saying unkind things. Semantics also can be a barrier. Like semantics is just apples and oranges. I say tomato, you say tomato. Like it's semantics, how you perceive it. And then what I do as a therapist is sometimes when I'm working with people and I'm unpacking what they're saying, I help to highlight that they're actually saying the same thing. Have you ever been in a conversation with someone and you realize that you've been going around and around and around like a little hamster on a wheel, right? This is the wheel. And, babe, you know what? Can you go upstairs and get my cord?
Oh my goodness.
I forgot to plug it in. Huh? No, it didn't go out yet. It just went dark.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So hopefully before we go out, it's in the bedroom. So sorry about that, guys. So you're like a hamster on a reel going around and around and around. And then you realize, we're saying the same thing. Go figure. How the heck did we have this argument for 2-3 hours when in actuality, when you peel back the layers, what's underneath the surface is we're saying the same thing. Like, let's say you're arguing about your kids, but really what you're arguing about is the safety. You want your children to be healthy. You want them to be whole. You want them to be safe. You want them to be educated. You want them to be loved. Those are common ground. So I help people to think about what is the common ground for all of us when we're in these discord conversations. Oh, okay. Okay. So there's semantics and then differences in meaning between the sender and the receiver. That's the last one. Those are basically the things that kind of keep us stuck from listening to one another, keep us from having, really, quite frankly, okay.
Do what you do.
All right. Keep us from having courageous conversations, right? It's not easy. Like, trust me.
Good now?
Yeah, much better. Thank you. Trust me. Morgan and I, we definitely have to have some courageous conversations on a regular basis. And sometimes you all might think, because we love each other.
Major courageous conversations. Major.
Because we love each other and because we like each other, we work it out. We work it out, but we put the work in. We are intentional that we're in it to win it. We're intentional that I was intentional when we got married, that I was one and done, that we were going to work at this even when we butted heads or we had conflict, and we put the work in. We make sure that we want each other to know that our intention is to do no harm. Our intention is goodwill. Our intention is not to hurt each other with our actions and our words. We always ask each other, are you helping to harm or healing the hurt? Tanya says, I'm guilty of tapping out. I'm guilty of tap out and tap in. I have emotional barriers with my spouse. It was there before the pandemic. I am that hamster on the wheel. Gotcha, Tanya. So here's the thing, Tanya, and thank you for your transparency. And I appreciate it so much because we are sometimes find ourselves that hamster on the wheel, right? That we've tapped out of the relationship. So we're emotionally checked out. And if you stay checked out, then you can't do anything, with that relationship. You've got to be courageous enough to tap back in and say, okay, how do we resolve this? How do we fix this? And I'm going to teach you some things that I really want you to try to practice over the next week.
What I just realized is if you are,
so you can see your head.
See, here you go. Environment bully. Environment bully.
We talked about this before. There you go.
So, anywho, if you are someone who wants to or have a question or something, but you want to ask it in anonymity, you can email us at contactus@connectionsmatterllc.com, and you can submit your question or comment there. Dr. Argie will address it anonymously. She will not say your name, but she will read the question for the audience. I'm quite sure a lot of questions you guys have out there, I'm quite sure others are having the same thoughts and concerns and questions too. So if you don't want to put it on the public platform here, your question, you can email it directly at contactus@connectionsmatterllc.com. That way you can submit your questions anonymously, and then Dr. Argie can address them there. All right. Thanks, guys. And I will make sure next time I come on, I sit up closer to the screen. So
right there.
Large.
Right there. You look like a hunchback. All we see is your head right there. Anyway, I crack myself up. I really do crack myself up. I crack Morgan up too. He says, you're a funny bird. You're a funny bird. Anyway, I'm reading it now. So Tamara says, so true. People hide behind the screen and say things that they would never say in person. We're talking about, that's when I was talking about, like, I think people are mean in the social media space and they need to stop it, right? Stop it. It's not nice. Karen said, I've said that to people during conversation. We went through the circle of life, but we were saying the same thing. I've ended up saying, this is what I said. What did you hear? And vice versa. Gotcha. That's nice. That's when you pause, right? So there's 5 things that you can do, guys. When you find yourself on that hamster wheel, right, and you're not getting anywhere, you got to take the time out. I say whoever takes the time out, you've got to come back to the conversation within at least 24 hours now that we're under the same roof, so people don't feel like, they've been abandoned from the conversation. But there are other 5 things that you do. You pause, you breathe, you reflect. You then identify your own trigger, not their trigger, your trigger. What triggered you? Because it's always the underlying trigger. And then you respond differently. If you do those 5 things, that can help to reset. Morgan and I do it all the time. We say, oh, can we get a reset? Let's reset this, right? Because it kind of moves you away from climbing up that anger ladder to a place where you're going to say or do things and you're escalated in a way that's not going to be helpful to the relationship. So those are 5 things that you can actually do to get yourself off the hamster wheel and on a positive course or positive track. Michelle said, it's so important that we allow people to share and tell their truth. Even if you don't agree, we must respect their thought and listen to their heart. That allows us and helps us to know who they are. Absolutely. But that requires patience. It requires a level of empathy. It requires a level of goodwill, right? And it requires a level of clarity, quite frankly, right? So sometimes, again, we all have different levels of communication skill set, right? So some people communicate with lots of words. Some communicate with little words. Some are in between. Some people have the ability to listen and process at the same time. Some people, not so much. Everybody has a different communication skill. So I ask people to think about what's their end game. So here's some things that people can actually do, right? If you're not listening actively, shift gears and start becoming an active listener. The art of effective communication is not just speaking, not just talking. The art of effective communication is when one person is speaking, one person is listening, and the message sent is the same message that's received, and vice versa. That is the art of effective communication. From there, you can move to problem solving if you need to. You can move to some level of agreements if you need to, right? Some decision making. Or you can agree to disagree, that now that you've heard one another and you clearly understand one another. But if you're not actively listening, I can guarantee you effective communication will not take place and there will be a barrier. So start paying attention, and pay attention to body language, pay attention to what's being said, pay attention to what's not being said. Be clear and concise. Even ask yourself, did that sound right in my head? Morgan and I do this all the time. I will say, or he will say to me sometimes, hey, that sounded better inside of your head, didn't it? Let's do a do-over, because sometimes we're thinking so fast because we just want the information to get out, but we're not really being clear and concise about the message that we're sending, right? The other thing is, don't use a whole lot of jargon. Like, this is not about impressing the person and letting them know how smart you are. The end game is to have understanding of each other, to hear each other's heart, and avoid the concerns of others. Like, stop dragging other people into a conversation between two people unless they're the issue, if you will. But if not, then keep them out of the conversation between you and the other person. So, family members, that's a whole nother thing when you're having like extended family members that are a part of the conversation when they're really not a part of the conversation, right? The loudest voice in your head needs to be the person that you're speaking to in the moment so that you can move to a healthier place. So I want to give you these things to remember. Y'all know I always have some acronyms for some things, right? So this is called IQA, right? Like an IQ, IQA. So the question is first.
Too much information. You're giving them too much information. It's okay. You started it now, but See, she's giving y'all too much information. She's just giving you a lot of stuff. You can't give it all to them at one time, man. You gotta let them, sort of marinate in that a little bit.
Okay.
Some of this stuff just can't be for free. I don't know. It's just how my brain works with that, babe. You can't give it all to them, all your good stuff.
I don't even know what to say.
No comments.
In real time, you are seeing a communication barrier.
You can't give it all.
In real time, you all have seen a communication barrier. However, I'm going to use it to our benefit here because, Morgan and I, that's funny. Your smile is, you're frozen.
Every connection is often caused by an unstable internet connection.
Mm-hmm.
Your own Wi-Fi move closer to the router box.
Well, it's still moving on my side. You're the one. You have to go out and come back in.
I will.
But I'm still rolling.
Okay.
I'm still rolling, and it has a split screen, and it has you just smiling. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to keep going. Morgan got frozen. I'm not sure why, but I'm going to use this as, now you're off, is a communication. We call it an enactment at clinical people, right? When you disagree, it was phenomenal that it actually happened because between us, because we just think very, very differently. And so in real time, I was processing, like, what should I say about that comment, right? But we're different people. And it's sometimes about accepting the differences between the two of us. I mean, we love each other to life and we like each other. And simultaneously, we're just very different. So Michelle said, you just paused, Dr. RG. Am I back, guys? Am I back? Let me know if I'm back, because I'm just rolling on because I see the time going. So it seems like we're fine. BJ said communication barrier, my expectation that people understand what I'm saying because I don't, because I understand it in my head. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But as far as what I was saying when I paused with Morgan, it was really like processing. And that's what I mean. First, you got to pause. Then you have to breathe. Then you have to reflect. Then ask yourself, why am I being triggered? And then respond. If you do that, because that's what I was doing in real time, pausing, breathing, reflecting, identifying if I'm triggered, which I really wasn't triggered. I was just sort of trying to think about how am I going to process that information and then respond differently. You see that works because then you don't just react in a way that is not healthy for the relationship. So I'm going to go back to what I was saying. Okay, Billy J said, I'm back. The IQA, right? Intention. What is your intention? What message do you hope you communicate? What is it really that you're trying to communicate? That's your intention. So if you're having a communication barrier, like somebody had said earlier, she was having a communication issue with her mom, right? Ask yourself, what do I want to say? YouTube is fine. You're rolling. Good. What do I want to say? What's my intention? Then, the qualifier. What's the outcome? What outcome do I want? And what outcome do I not want? You need to communicate that with your partner, your parent, your kid. Listen, I would hope that we get to the other side of this conversation with this outcome, that we have a better understanding of each other, with this outcome, that we learn something about one another, with this outcome, that we are better for this conversation, whatever the outcome is. And then also what I don't want this to blow up and for you to not like me or for me to not like you, or I just don't want us to be in constant discourse. So that's the qualifier. So before you even get into the conversation, you're setting your intention, you're listing your qualifier, and then you're saying what you appreciate. I appreciate that you're willing to have this conversation with me. I appreciate that you've been doing XYZ during this quarantine, right? You've been working hard just like I've been working hard, or that you've been doing all the meals, and I haven't had to worry about that. Like whatever it is that you're appreciating, that really can help to set the tone for whatever the courageous conversation is that you're having. Because no one likes for somebody to come at them with the laundry list of the things that they've done wrong. Nobody likes that. Even if they've done some things wrong, we don't like that. We do need to hear the truth. But if you give them the laundry list of things that they've done wrong, then oftentimes they're going to separate. They're going to tap out, and they may not tap back in. So that's what you do if you want to engage in the conversation from the beginning of a difficult conversation. Those three things will help you move into the conversation. And then begin to share your heart, speaking from I, always from I. So this is how I felt. This is how I'm feeling. This is what I'm thinking. By the way, feelings and thoughts are two different things. Feelings are emotions, and thoughts are the thoughts that you have in your head. So when I ask people to think about, when I ask people, say, well, tell me how you're feeling. What's the emotion? And they say, well, what I was thinking was that I was, very annoyed with blah, 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 blah. I was like, oh, stop right there. So you're saying that you were annoyed. That's the feeling. The feeling is different than the thought. And speaking from I can help you. And then going back and forth and asking the other person how they're feeling, and then finding some common ground. You may land on very different perspectives, right? So around COVID-19, with this quarantine, people are fed up. They've got, cabin fever or quarantine fever. They want to get out. It's a holiday weekend. People wanted to, hang out. So there's a lot of emotions, and emotions are very much like a tinderbox, right? They can be, you can light a match and it can be explosive at any time. So in order to not have that explosion take place, you need to step back from it and really focus on what is it that you want that person to know from your heart. What is the I statement, the I feeling, the I thought, and have them share their statement or their thought. If you do that, you may find, one, that you have more common ground than you realize. You may also find that you agree to more things than you disagree. You may also find that you have the bandwidth to just be okay with agreeing to disagree, as long as it's not impacting your life, if you will. Now with COVID-19, it's a little bit different because you could go outside without a mask and it could be playing Russian roulette with your life. So I do think that there are reasons for another conversation. But in general, these are the principles that can help you to eliminate the conflict, the impasse, the withdrawal, these other things that, are barriers to communication, lack of trust, disrespect, poor tracking, if you will. You ever been in a real conversation and it's poor tracking because somebody's saying something that you didn't say? So write it down. That's a technique that you can use. Or if the person's talking long-winded and they're long-winded, write down what you want to say. So that way you don't forget it. And then having different values. Also, main barrier to poor communication or to breakdown in communication is resentment. If you've built up resentment because you haven't been talking to the person, that can be problematic. So you have to be honest with yourself. Are you resenting something that the person has not offered to you, or if they've not communicated effectively to you, or they're not doing something that you've asked them to do? Is there just a built up level of resentment that needs to be resolved and needs to be talked about in order for you all to move on? Listen, I would like for you to share this conversation, share it with other people, come onto the crew, let other people know. IG family, I hope you're still here with me. Share with other folks that you come on every day at 10 o'clock with the crew for us to have these conversations, because they're important. Share your story. I can guarantee you, because I see it all day in my practice, we are now 11 weeks into this quarantine. People were feeling better on the beginning, even if they were anxious about it, because they felt like it was going to be a couple of weeks. They did a study people who are exhibitionists. They go out and they, do very adventurous kinds of things. And they found like when people focused on a mission in the very beginning, even if it felt like it was dangerous or there was a fear of the unknown, they were all gung ho because they're like, hey, this is going to be fun. We're going to, do this mission. But then when it got to like close to the end, they were like, okay, is this over yet? And then when they felt like it had to continue because it wasn't over, they lost either interest or they got disappointed or they just checked out. And what I'm saying to you all is that we are nowhere near the end of this. We're going to continue, Morgan and I, doing these conversations because we feel like they're necessary. Because what I'm seeing, what I see trending is that people are decompensating. People are kind of in a little bit of a downward spiral and they're not having healthy conversation. They are not building bridges, right? There are lots of barriers to these conversations now. And we've got to do something different about that, especially if we're going to be quarantined for a while still, even though you can get out and get fresh air and things like that. And people are having some very creative ways of social distancing cookouts and things like that. The bottom line is that you're still in the space that you're in, right? And then, it might be that you need to have a conversation with yourself to break that barrier. That could be for those who are living with themselves. By the way, we have conversation on a daily basis with ourselves oftentimes. And sometimes the conversation is not good. And there is a communication barrier with ourselves with regards to our future, with regards to what we will do going forward, with regards to maybe the places that we're working, places and spaces that we're working. So we've got to eliminate some of that and move forward to a healthier space by doing some of the things that we talked about. Tell us if this is helpful to you. Use these skills, use these techniques to help you in your communication with yourself and with others to build bridges and to break barriers. We're going to take a quick break from our sponsors, and we will be right back, so stay with us. No other choice. Hey guys, this is Dr. RG here at Courageous Conversations Connect Space. This is our quarantine talks. I was telling Carla Clarkson, who is a wonderful hairstylist extraordinaire, that this yours truly hairdo is my job. I did it myself yesterday. I did a long, deep condition. And then I asked Morgan this morning, talk about communication barriers, breaking barriers. I asked him, how does it look, babe? He's like, and then he like touched it. He's like, it looks okay. It was like, babe. So I was like, I don't have any color. I didn't have as much product. I did the best that I could do.
She likes doing this to me. Like, do you really think I would say that? It's like the third rail question that any man can be asked of his woman or wife. Wait a minute, hold on. Hey, babe, don't look fat in this. You know he can't. Even if she did, he could never say yes.
Anywho, I did the best that I could. I hope that my hair looks presentable.
It looks fabulous. Looks
That's
great.
not what you said earlier, babe.
No, well, comparative to what it is when you get it, but in terms of you doing it by yourself, no question, looks great.
You did a good job. Thank you, Karen. Thank you. Tis. I'm getting the women mad at you.
I'm always outnumbered on this platform. I'm always outnumbered. I am nice. I'm a nice guy. What do you think? I'm a nice guy. What are you talking about? Girl, I spoil your butt. I spoil
He does spoil me. He does spoil me. But I don't think that men really fully understand the issue with women. And maybe we're going to talk about that at some point too. Like our hair, the whole quarantine, we can't go to the hairstylist and we can't get our nails done. And some of that is probably more superficial anyway. But, we do feel good when we're dressed up on the outside and we're not going to work and dressing up, these kind of things. So, it's been a little challenging for the whole hair thing. Clean up. I don't know. Clean up. I don't know what she means. It looks good. Val has been wearing natural hair for a long time. So if she ever says my hair looks nice, then I believe her. Watch out, man. Just said, watch out, man. Thank you, Tanya. Thank you, Tanya.
Yo, I know, man. I'm like, yo. I'm walking a thin rope here. I mean, my goodness.
No, let me. I'll clean this up. So Morgan does. Morgan does compliment me all the time.
Oh my goodness.
He does compliment me all the time, and he does make me feel extremely beautiful most of the time. Morgan's trying to clean up his comments. That's what she said.
Oh my goodness. Hey, Phil. I want you on my side. My goodness.
No, Morgan does, babe, I love you. He compliments me all the time. But I also appreciate him being honest with me about various things. And so that's a little bit of a trap when women ask the guy, well, how does this look or what have you? And I don't think that women understand as much you guys, like I watch you, what you have to do with your bald head and everything. It's a lot of work that you put into your grooming.
I'd rather have hair on my head to really keep a bald head nicely.
And you have a great head, but you work at it, babe. But I also think, just like I didn't understand all that you do, I don't think men sometimes understand all that women have to do. And you probably can't fully understand it. So this is when I talk about the communication barrier, I talk about this with us trying to figure out, like, how do we engage in conversations that are like tinderboxes or hot button conversations and still have a healthy conversation. You did a wonderful job. Thank you, Val. I appreciate it. I tried. That's been, good portion of the day working on it.
Well, that's part of what part of your book is, Courageous Conversations Connect.
Yeah.
And to have a courageous conversation, we have to employ what we always say: truth, trust, transparency leads to transformational breakthrough. Yep. Oftentimes, it's really tough when it comes to couples having those courageous conversations, because you're going to inevitably talk about a topic or more subject that's highly sensitive. So it's like I'm walking on eggshells, or more like landmines. It's like, you can blow yourself up at some point. But what does it mean to have a true courageous conversation if you don't get to those real tender topics and subjects with your spouse? I mean, it's tough, and if you're always going to be caught up in your feelings, we have those things all the time, which I know was what kind of led to you writing the book Courageous Conversation, because we've been having courageous conversations since day one, and being truthful and honest with each other. And I think that more people can do more of that, if you will, and more to your point. In this pandemic, in this quarantine situations, people are forced to communicate more so than they had in the past, because every day people go out to work, you spend 8, 9, 10 hours at work, come home, a couple of hours, you don't have the time. So people being forced to have those greatest conversations. I think that book you wrote is pretty powerful and pretty poignant for such a time as this.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yes. But we're gonna have to end. We're gonna make a few more comments in, because I agreed to work today, so I'm gonna transition from this work to seeing clients for a couple of hours. So I need to transition and be on time for that. But Karen said to Morgan, when a man says, "I enjoy kissing you, I can kiss you for days," should I receive it as he said it or read into it? That's for you, Morgan. And can you make that short?
Sure, I'll make it short. No problem. Don't read into it. Leave it right where it is. I mean, if a man says he can kiss you for days, one, he likes your lips. He likes the way you taste, and we're very real with you. And he loves the way you kiss. This is it's simple. You know, I think sometimes women make the mistake of trying to read more into it than what it is, because maybe they're searching for what they really want to hear, and he's not saying it exactly the way they want him to say it, but he's saying it the way he can say it. And so leave it right there. Don't, look beyond it. Just keep it right where it is. And if he said he loves kissing you, he loves the way you taste, girl. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. That's just my thoughts.
All right. All right. So Autumn says, I'm newly engaged. What great information gathering platform. Love these conversations and transparency. Thank you, Autumn. Thank you. And then
she said not said. That's what she was. I guess that's what Karen was saying. Gotcha. Not said.
And Joseph says, Yvette says, you guys are help us with how to work through through that small situation. Awesome.
Good stuff, man.
Awesome. It's good stuff. Listen, couples, this is work. Whether you're a couple, whether you're a parent, whether you're a person, whether you are a parent, whatever relationship you are in, it's work. So you got to put the work in. This is the last thing I'm going to leave you guys with. You would never go to the bank and go to the ATM and put in your digits and expect to get money back if you did not put money in, right? You wouldn't expect that, because you have to make deposits into your bank account in order to get money out. That is the same thing with relationships. We have to make deposits into our relationship. We have to build up currency in those relationships. And we have to then be honest with what we've invested in those relationships in order to get the return, the ROI on our investment. And we're investing in each other. That is the reason for having these courageous conversations. And it's also the reason for breaking the barriers, because I want to ask you all to ask yourself the honest question. Are there barriers in my relationships? And what am I willing to do about those barriers to build bridges, and then be willing to put the work in and have the conversation? So anyway, that's all we got for today, guys. I have to transition. I start seeing clients at 11:30. I am so glad to see you guys, though. I know that Morgan and I, we felt like we had a week off, and we were a little rusty coming back here this morning. We're like, oh, it's a holiday. We were just a little rusty. We got our coffee, and we had, our courageous conversation a little bit this morning, and said, okay, let's step back and let's just focus on what our goal is, because our goal is to create this crew, and you guys are our crew. So please share this information with your friends and your family. Have them come on board to our crew. Don't forget to go to YouTube and subscribe to our YouTube page. It's the Ask Dr. RG, ASKDR ARGIE page. Lots of content on there. Hit the notification button. Also, type subscribe in the message. Oh, yeah. And then tomorrow we're going to have John Taylor on. We're going to be talking about emotional and psychological barriers. He is a wonderful therapist extraordinaire. I think you guys are going to enjoy it. And then on Wednesday, we're going to have Bishop Sean Bartley of True United Church. And he's going to be talking with us about structural and institutionalized barriers. That's going to be an amazing conversation. And we're going to be having special guests every week. Usually I will book in the days. So Mondays and Thursdays, you got me, yours truly, about a topic or what have you. And then on Tuesday and Wednesday, we'll have special guests. Of course, I will still be here doing the interviewing and engaging in a creative conversation. So we hope you will continue to join us. Let other people know that we're here. And remember, let's give honor and praise and a special celebration to those persons who have given their ultimate sacrifice in the military for us, and those persons who are still in the military and protecting us. Today is Memorial Day. We should be celebrating them. And as I said a little bit earlier, that I was breathing and celebrating all day the two people that are very special to me that have been in the military, which is my father, Hildred G. Allen, and who was in the Army, and also a very good friend and my husband's spiritual partner, spiritual father, if you will, Gene Austin Jefferson. 3 tours in Vietnam. He is the man. Okay. So anyway, that's all we got, guys, for today. Have a wonderful Memorial Day. We will see you tomorrow at 10 a.m. Have a beautiful day on purpose, from my heart to yours.